So welcome everyone. This is Imagineer and Support Brokerage Network vlog, part of the vlog series. We are now on episode 6 of the vlog series. And today we'd like to welcome Fionnathan to talk with us during this episode. Fionnathan have a fantastic, good morning, have a fantastic mission to exist, to have fun and to change the world. And in their journey to pursue that mission and to live that mission, you've been able to do so much, and we can't quite believe how much as a duo, as a team, you've been able to do. So I'm going to just read through some of the stats that we have here from your website. So within education, we can see that you've had 113 visits to schools, colleges and universities, but you've actually achieved that by travelling to 7 different countries. With around visual arts, you've done 17 art exhibitions, including one in New York City, which must have been so exciting. I can't wait to hear more about that if we get a chance to speak about that a bit today. 22 film commissions, you've interviewed 600 people, and you're actively involved in music as well. So Fionn, I understand you're a fiddle player, and we've just been hearing about that a little bit. And Jonathan, you play guitar. So we asked how we introduced you. So you're known as Fionnathan, and we now realise that you are a father and team, enterprise team, but you are also a son and father enterprise team as well. So we see things from both sides. So welcome Fionn and welcome Jonathan. We can't wait to hear more about what you do and what you achieve in the pursuit of your mission as well. I think it'd be great to start in hearing a little bit more about what you do. You know, what is this about for you, and how did your journey start?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. Well, it's more or less started when I was a child, really. When I was a child, then a teenager, and then things kicked off from there, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So yes, thank you, Sarah and Liz, for having us. There's Fionn and I'm Jonathan, and we are
Fionnathan.
And yeah, okay, you can start there with childhood.
Yes.
When you were born,
Yeah.
your mother and I didn't live in the same continent,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Fionn, you were born here in Ireland, and I was
Yes.
living in America. And your mom and I hadn't determined whether we would have a life together,
Right.
but then you made it clear for
Yes.
us, right?
I did, yeah.
That I would be moving to Ireland.
Yes.
And a few years later, we were a family. And
Yes.
we got married, and you were there at the wedding, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And then I suppose we jumped to when you were early years of school.
Yes.
Attending a Steiner school, and that's my background as a teacher in the Steiner method.
Yeah.
And the Irish government said, well, yes, Fionn, you would be entitled to a support person in the classroom if you attend the national schools, the public school,
Right.
The state school. But if you choose to attend that independent school, you don't get any support. From us anyway, and we didn't think that was fair.
Yeah.
And so we talked to some other people who agreed that it wasn't fair, some of whom are legal experts. And the next thing we knew, you were in the witness stand in the Supreme Court.
That's right, yeah, the High Court.
As a 6-year-old fella at the High Court, saying, I want to be in the school I'm in.
Yeah.
And what or rather the solicitor was arguing was that it's our choice what school you go to.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be penalized for the choice we make.
Yeah.
And the judge agreed that was a good rationale for giving you a or rather giving the school that you attended funds for an
Yeah.
assistant. And the
Oh,
best part of that
brilliant.
was, yeah, it was a great, it was a great training into
Yeah.
the importance of advocacy.
Yes.
And it
Mhm.
also, because it was it wasn't like an official state hire. All the teachers, I don't know how it is in England, but in Ireland, all the teachers are employed by the state. So the support person in the classroom would have been a state hire, but no, they gave the grant to the school and said, you take care of this. And the school itself said, we're rather busy. Why don't you parents sort this out?
Yeah.
So we chose the various assistants that you had. We did the job hiring and the job description.
Yeah.
So this person was able to, well, first of all, to teach. That's the main thing that assistants in classrooms are forbade from doing by the teachers union. They say you can only help the person put on their shoes and get out their lunch and do everything that's not education related. And from the parent's point of view, if you're going to have an assistant in the classroom, you want this assistant to help your child to learn. So, so your assistant was invited to and expected to modify the curriculum along with the teacher, figure out how you would learn it best and how to make sure you were well included in everything that was going on. Or when you needed a break from the classroom to take you out. And it wasn't only into like a little side room or something. Where did your assistant take you out to? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I do actually. Yes. Well, long walks in the woods. Since the school was right there on the woods.
Which we know you enjoy, Liz. You've been doing some woods walks recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he would also take me horseback riding and swimming
during school hours because
that was incredible. That's fantastic.
Needed on those days. Yeah, so it was really a wonderful outcome.
And also hurling practice.
Hurling, the Irish
that's
sport.
cool.
Oh, hurling. Hurling.
Oh
my word.
So jump.
That's quite a skill.
We'll jump right ahead to your teenage years.
Yeah.
When, like most parents, I was asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up anyway?
Yes.
And the first time I asked you, like it was a clear question because I was thinking, so what's Fionn's future after school going to be?
Yeah.
You're quite you have an intellectual disability, but you're quite an intelligent young man and quite a studious one.
Yes,
so,
I do.
Yes. So it would make sense for you to go to college but you know, we're not really big fans of segregated programs. And so you tried that for 2 years during your school, actually during secondary school.
I did,
We went to a special school and we could talk about that if you don't mind. But I mean, we don't have to because it just wasn't that good. And we realized we didn't want to do a segregated post-secondary program.
Right, yeah.
And in Ireland at the time, and it's pretty much the same 10 years later, there are very few, if any, opportunities for people labeled with intellectual disability to attend the college courses of their choice. There are a couple of college programs specifically for students with intellectual disability, but those are segregated programs where everybody studies life skills, you know, and Fionn wanted to study zoology or music or drama or, you know, one of the subjects that's already on the menu, not a special subject. So we knew that college wasn't going to be an option in the short term.
Yeah.
And obviously getting a job is the other thing that most young people seek. And so I asked you, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you gave me a clear answer straight away.
I did, yeah.
What was that?
Oh, yes. I said, I said, I want to be the next David Attenborough.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I love that so much. That's so cool.
And
wow. Isn't he a
that's
great
such an ambition to hold
presenter?
as well, isn't
it made a lot of sense. And to be honest, I'm a bit of a slow learner myself, and I didn't think that was a very practical thing, to like I just listened to literally, and I thought, well, we don't even live in England, and I'm sure there's a line 100 people long with PhDs in biology and zoology and film production and such. So that's not going to happen. And then I had to sleep on it and think about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And fortunately, I didn't say any of my doubts to you initially.
No.
I thought, okay, And then I realized, well, what is Fionn really saying? I had to listen creatively. And I realized, well, you love animals.
Yeah.
And you're devoted to learning about animals.
Yeah.
Both sort of abstractly or intellectually with all your many hours that you spent and still spend reading about researching animals.
Yeah.
And also passionately in the wild, in nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even, I mean, as you'll hear, we've been to some amazing places in the world, but even just in the backyard, lifting up a rock and seeing what's underneath.
Seeing what's there, yeah, absolutely.
Those animals. So I knew you had a great passion for it, and I thought, and you would love to share that with other people.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what David Attenborough does.
Yeah, that's right.
And you'd love to travel, and you're pretty interested in filmmaking. So actually, all that's possible. So maybe that's what we'll do together.
Yeah.
Because I want to help you after school. I was getting ready to for a career change from teaching children, and I thought maybe I'll go with you on this journey.
Yes.
But I know that teenagers change their minds often. So
that's right.
So I asked you a week later, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yes.
And you said
that I want to be an accomplished musician.
Oh, that's a bit different from David Attenborough, isn't it?
Hey, I mean, it's another good goal, because Fionnathan had been playing the violin for years and practicing really diligently, and Ireland's such a great culture for traditional Irish music.
Yeah,
but it is a very different goal from David Attenborough. So could we combine the two interests? Of course we could.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little more a complicated answer, but we've got a double answer.
Yes.
But just to be sure, I asked again.
Yeah.
And you said,
I want to be a member of One Direction.
Which one did you want to be, Fionn? Which member?
You wanted to be your own member. You wanted to be a new one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I wanted to be a new one, and I followed the footsteps of Niall Horan.
Of course, yes, the Irish one.
He's from Clonakilty.
Right. So,
is that close to you then? Is that close to where you're from as well?
Not so close, but not far from where we were.
Not far.
Yeah.
So I didn't know quite what to do with that. But again, listen.
Yeah, that's a good mix.
And asking myself, what is he really saying here? Well, he's a teenager. He loves the idea of being adored by lots of people, right? Like, and you want to perform on stage, and you want to meet your heroes.
Yeah.
So those were things I took on to address the interest specifically. It was just before Christmas, and I did make you a little Christmas present.
That's right, you did.
What was the Christmas present? What was that?
Oh well, he got me a poster of the lads, or the members of One Direction, and they had a cutout picture of me, and
slipped it in among.
And slipped it in, yeah.
I love that.
And he went one step further. He decided to change the name from One Direction to Fionn Direction.
I love it.
That's fantastic.
And then I could put that dream to rest, and we could go back to the
So this might be
complicated plan. And you also said one time, well, I want to be a filmmaker. So that was another thing that I have an interest
What
in.
a range of like aspirations to hold.
Well, so many things. And when Fionn then finished secondary school, and we were getting down to brass tacks and talking with the disability officer from the HSC, the Department of Health, which in itself is kind of a strange thing, right? That it's that all the funding and coordination is through the health
Oh.
department. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's the system. And he gave you a few options for day services.
Yeah, he did.
Where from about 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, 5
Yeah.
days a week,
Yeah.
you would be in a program. And the program is not 2 years long. It's not
Right.
6 years long. It's for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These day services. And you're not like you're not
Yeah.
going toward some goal with this service. I mean, like we all go through school years where you're told what to do every day.
Yeah.
And that's just the lot of children. And there's some good rationale for that, but it's kind of crummy too. And then some of us as an adult, we go on to university, where we're told what to do every day. Basically, we have a certain amount of freedom and choice in there, but really we kind of give up a lot of that for a period of time because we know we're going to get a nice reward at the end.
Yeah.
But what we're asking young people like Fionnathan at the time to do is to be told what to do every day for an unending period of time. And without any goal, without any achievement, without any but without much choice in it at all.
Yeah. How did that feel? How was that for you at that time? Because Fionn, you were having a whole range of ideas about what your life was going to be about, what you was going to achieve. What was it like at that time to be then offered a place like that? The day centre.
Oh, well, I did check them out. One of them in Ennis County Clare looked progressive according to what they were offering.
Was that last or streetwise?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you like about that?
Well, I suppose making friendships powers.
Making friendships.
And
being out and about in the community sounded really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being out and about in community from that service. But
they had a hub where they would
ways.
meet every day at the beginning and the end of the day, or on a rainy day or whatever. They'd often spend the whole day at the hub.
Yes, but the hub of streetwise though was tucked in behind an industrial park though.
Right.
Industrial park where all these big semi trucks come in and load up from the warehouses and things. I mean, what a strange metaphor for, like they could have, the services who are spending the taxpayers' money could have spent it on a nice place in the village, right on one of the main streets where people would be expected to interact with others.
Yeah.
No, you interact with truck drivers and you don't interact with them. It's warehousing people was what we felt it was.
Yeah.
So there's some progress, and even in the 10 years since, we do interact quite a bit with we haven't given up on helping to reform the day services.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, you've done quite a bit of work in that realm, but we decided not to be part of it. And you had a conversation in that decision with the CEO of one of the biggest services.
Yeah.
And do you remember the 3 questions you asked about the curriculum, if you will? What did you ask?
Yeah, I asked him. I asked him, well, could I learn to play my fiddle there at your services there? And will I learn zoology there? And will I learn filmmaking at Brothers of Charity?
Yeah, you basically asked
what answers did you
things
Yeah.
that interest me. And what did he say?
He said, no, but what you are looking for, Fionn, is the future, and what we are offering is a dinosaur.
Yeah, that's a
Wow,
direct
that's
quote.
quite an
Honesty.
honest response, isn't
Yes.
it?
Very
Yeah.
good.
Very
Yeah.
honest.
And the wonderful thing, he said, you have to understand, Fionn, we set this program up before we knew you. And we have to cater to groups of people, and the groups, of course, we try to work with democracy, but that means basically the group there has to be one decision for the whole group. So an example from another friend that we met later who lived in supported care, like an institution for decades of his life. He said every Saturday we would vote on what to do with our day. And the majority always said they wanted what?
To go shopping in the local shopping center.
Yeah, you can understand that's kind of a fun thing to do. But he wanted to watch the match. And he never got to watch the match because
So he was always
it wasn't
voted
what the
out.
majority wanted. So he was overruled.
Yeah.
He said he couldn't make a cup of tea past 8 p.m. because they locked up the kitchen, those kind of things. So now we're not talking about for you residential care,
Right.
but in many ways it would have been giving up far too much of your autonomy and too many of your dreams and your goals.
Yeah.
So when he said what we can offer is a real dinosaur,
Yeah.
you're looking for the future, Fionn.
Yes.
The government officials were in the room. They had set up that meeting because they knew we weren't going to just quietly sign the contract.
Right.
And when he said, Fionn, I think you need a personal budget.
Yeah.
The HSC guys looked at each other and said, maybe we need to look seriously at this.
Yeah.
And why was that such a dramatic moment, not only in our lives, but in the course of Irish history? Not to be too grand about it, but you were the very first.
Yes, I was. Yeah, this is actually true. I am the very first person in Ireland with an intellectual disability to have a personal budget.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
So you're a
took a while.
pioneer, Fionn.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
absolutely.
right.
That's
Wow.
so
I am
cool.
also an Imagineer too.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then you had this budget, and you have the opportunity to hire somebody to be your support person.
Yes, that's right. I have decided to hire myself looking awesome, very handsome father.
And I made Fionnathan an offer he couldn't refuse, because when they whittled down through negotiation what they were willing to give him, it amounted to about 10 hours of support per week, which is crazy. It's far too little to scaffold a good life around. And if he'd stayed in the service, they would have given him 30 hours a week, so it was also kind of a mean gesture by saying, no, we're just looking at numbers. The amount that we would be contributing to that service for Fionn's name is X amount. That's all we're letting you take away. And it's trickery, because of course the government gives these organizations millions of euro to build buildings and to pay for all their administrative staff, but they were just looking at that front line piece that they said, we'll transfer that over to you, Fionn. And 10 hours is what you'll be able to buy. So I said, well, Fionn, don't get despondent. I don't know what would happen if you hire a stranger, but if you hire me, I'll work without counting the hours. So we'll just make this a full-time endeavor. And so it's a little weird, and we could talk more about the idea of hiring a family member for a support person, particularly in the realms of physical disability and social disability. That's quite controversial. There's a lot of people that say we shouldn't. Some of them even say, some of them say we shouldn't be allowed to hire family members, which is a strange thing to say, right? To put a restriction on yourself. We say people should be allowed to hire whomever they wish.
Yes.
And it will often be not a family member, but sometimes for a period of your life, that's the best person to hire. And so that's our pitch about that.
Yes.
It'd be
and-
great to explore that some more with you both, because it
Mm.
is something that does come up as a topic. You know, when people are wanting to explore the life I want, the life I want to lead, and how I want to be supported, it is an area where, you know, people rightly want the people closest to them in their life, people that understand them the best, but quite often face these challenges in
Yeah.
achieving that. Is it
There's-
possible
there's
to ask
also-
you a question
Oh,
at,
sure,
at
yeah.
this stage?
Yeah,
Because I
please.
just would, with you being the pioneer and you being the team that you know, Fionn, you got the budget, and you together have done some awesome things that we want to hear more about it today as well. But since that time, do you have an idea of how many people now you've opened the gateway for? You know, you was the first person to get a personal budget. How many other people in Ireland have been able to now take that direction? How many people have been able to access a personal budget?
It's still
Hmm.
very few,
Ye-
isn't it?
Yes, it's still very few. Yeah.
At the time that you got yours, there were about 40 people with physical disabilities who
Yeah.
had pioneered this. And
Yeah.
a number of them really helped to get yours, your request across the line.
Yeah.
But it's not a right, as it would be in Scotland, for instance, where there's a legal right to get a personal budget.
Yeah.
You served on the personal budgets task force,
Yeah.
where some of the rules were being sorted,
Yeah.
and or proposals anyway. And the Department of Health had a proposal that any money that comes out of our big budget will individuals will only be able to use it for health-related needs. So you can have a supporter who helps you in the home and things like that, but that supporter can't help with transportation or with employment, because we have a Department of Transportation and a Department of Employment, and they have their own budgets. So you can't be using our money for that. And it just sounded so ridiculous.
Yeah.
From a point of view of looking at a whole human being. What is Fionn supposed to do? Go to each department and ask for a personal budget from each one? It was really backwards, bureaucratic thinking. And we definitely pushed back against that on the task force.
Yeah.
The result of the task force, though, this is, you know, learning about how governments work, how slowly they work, was to create a pilot project, which where they were going to have 100 people across the country have their own personal budgets to see how it goes. And before the pandemic, or as the pandemic began, they were 2 years behind. And then, of course, they gave themselves an out. So after the pandemic, they said, oh, we're a bit behind, but it's all because of the pandemic. And they're now in the midst of this pilot project.
Yeah.
And after the pilot project is done in a year or two, then they're going to take another year or two to discuss it. And then maybe a system will be rolled out. But I think that they've given the traditional service providers too much authority. They are the ones that are administering the personal budgets, which is just lots of extra layers, but also the people who have been in power, who need to give the power over to others, get to decide whether or not they're willing to share the power. So that's a real, perhaps poison pill. And other thing we've heard is that the amounts that they're giving, like in your case, are so low that it may be destined to fail. I mean, most people don't have a father who says, I'll quit my job and do this without pay, you know? So we're really, in some ways, I've heard Ireland has some of the best writing about disability rights in the world, and when actually on the ground, really bad.
So from your point of view as father and son, or son and father team, depending how you see this, why does it really work, Fionn, you utilising your budget and employing your dad, and you doing the awesome stuff you've done together, which is truly inspiring. I love your website and everything you've done. But why has that worked so well? What is the real positives, benefits, however you want to frame it, of employing somebody who's a family member?
Well, I suppose the best way to say that is it's so awesome having a father. And the best
That's nice.
possible supporter I've ever had.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and what makes it so good for you? What is it your dad brings that is so good for you?
I suppose one thing in particular, well, actually two things. One is he really had to be sharp,
Come on with that.
and number two is because I love him from the very bottomless pit of my heart.
Yeah,
That's
so
lovely.
You're
one of-
tight, aren't you? Your relationship is a tight relationship.
yeah,
You're
one
very
of my
close.
job hazards is I have to put up with daily compliments like that.
I'm
But-
sure you can
but-
survive that.
Yes, I would say that we're family members, so we have a lot of
Yeah.
mutual interests and likes, and that's really great because when like we're called Fionnathan instead of Jonathan or whatever that would be, both because it flows better off the tongue, but also because Fionn's the boss.
Yeah.
Like literally, I'm the employee.
Yeah.
So so we do things that you want to do.
Yes,
And-
like Food Cloud, right?
Yes, like Food Cloud, which we can talk more about.
Okay.
But also that things that I mean, I want to do a lot of those too. And then there's things that you want to do that I don't want to do. And I say, oh, well, okay, this
Yeah.
is the 10 hours I'm paid for in the week. And I wouldn't say it's been an automatic thing or an easy thing necessarily for me to find a new role in Fionn's life, because as a father, I have, like, I think even a father of an adult, I have more authority in your life
Yeah.
to say, well, we don't do that, you know, that sort of thing. Like some fathers are really way over the top with it, but I think we all appreciate when our parents are giving us guidance and taking some of the decisions out of our hands. It's funny, we often talk about like the ability to make choices in life and how precious that is, and it is. We rarely talk about what a relief it is for someone else to make some of the choices. And actually, most of us have our lives only work because we're not constantly making choices. What a stress it can be to have to make decisions all day, every day. That's why we do our routines. That's why we go to the same restaurants and same, you know, because we don't want to make so many. We only want to make the choices we want to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in that sense, I've had to learn a role where I'm not deciding what we do.
Right.
You
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also the pay thing, the Department of Health made us set up a company. They said, if we're not going to give money to an individual, but if you set up a company officially, then you can be a service provider for one. And we're happy with that. So that was what was required. So we set up the company and the company employs me.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, Fionn's working just as hard as I am on this. It doesn't make sense for me to be the only one that's paid. So we figured it out that with seed money, we could just put in our own capital into this business, if you will, a social enterprise is the way we look upon it. And then we did a little hunting. And this is, I think, one of the main things that's made our project successful is how we look at things that are there, services that the state has or grants that are on offer, and say, how can we make this work for us? So in the case of the wage subsidy scheme, employers are given half the wages back that they pay for a disabled employee. That's the short version.
Wow.
But we're the first ones to create a person-centered job using that. As far as we know, we're not the last though. Others have said, good idea, we're going to do that too. And and so Fionn gets paid just minimum wage, you know, but the half the money comes from our own income, our company's coffers,
Yes.
and the other half is a grant that comes back from the government.
Yeah.
So actually the personal budget and what you've done together and the company you've formed has actually been a springboard to a whole range of other things that you've identified that can bring resource into your company for you both to continue doing the whole range of things that you do. I mean, I find it incredible how much you actually do and what you've achieved, and it'd be great to hear more. So once you'd reached that stage where you'd talked about the day centre, the 5 days in this place, it was just not going to be that aspirational place that you were looking for Fionn, with regards to becoming a filmmaker, a fledgling musician, and all the things you wanted to do, and you left that behind, really, didn't you? And you created your own path. You created something you wanted to pursue.
Well,
So it'd be great to hear more about that and what you've done in that time. You know,
I did mention we still have interaction with the day services and such, but that's like, for instance, last month you gave a keynote address.
Yeah.
What was that?
fantastic.
To the national
To the National Advocacy Conference, which is called Heroes.
That was the theme this year, Heroes. So this
Heroes.
is National Advocacy Council is not a DPO, a disabled persons organization run by people with disabilities. It's run by the services, or one of the largest in the country. It is a nationwide thing, and it's good. You know, people really enjoy their involvement on this, learning about advocacy and social, you know, it has social benefits and such. But Fionn's very much an outsider, and you were asked and paid to give the keynote address to their annual conference. So we do go to services quite a bit, but it's when they say, we want to make a film, Fionn and Jonathan, can you come and help us make a movie? Here's some money. So that's our involvement with the services, and also with government group programs looking at reform and things like that.
So that's part of the mission around creating change. I'm assuming that's
Absolutely.
really what you're helping.
So we didn't.
to do
So we didn't turn our backs on them and say we want nothing to do with you. We did say, well, we're going to stand here outside of the game you're playing, and we're going to, you know, comment upon it and help you. That's it. We're not. We're only critical so far as they'll, you know, as they're still listening. If we get too harsh with them, they'll close us out. So I think we have an optimistic point of view.
Yes.
So Fionn, what are the 3 pillars of our company?
The part that I really love, the 3 main pillars of our social enterprise: the arts, media, and education.
We have parts of all those things you said you wanted to do when you were young.
Yes,
we
that's right.
We learned that education is a much bigger part of it, and that, I don't know if that's your parents' influence, because we're both teachers.
That's right. Yes.
But I think you also are a really good teacher.
Oh, thank you, my dad.
And we when Fionn had done all this study in about animals, and we realized that you know much more than either of us do about it.
Yeah.
We thought, well, you could teach children with your great fascination with animals.
Yeah.
And I suppose I learned from learning a little bit about the work of Wolfensberger and social role valorization, that you're always looking for, okay, the things that someone does or wants to do, how can you bring it up a notch in social involvement and ways in which people value the work that someone's doing. So in our capitalist world, that often means money. And so I thought, okay, so you've done a couple of these now. You went around to schools and you presented a PowerPoint about what was the theme?
The theme is the mammals of Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Fionn's teaching about nature. And I thought, is this a job? Like, are there professionals who go from school to school and teach about nature? turns out there is. And
Yeah.
the Heritage Council in Ireland hosts a panel of experts who do just that. And schools chip in a bit, and the Heritage Council chips in a bit, and they get paid for their day's work.
Yeah.
So I approached them and said, I know of a young man who would be really good at doing this, but he doesn't have a college degree. Is that a requirement? And they said, no, because we like when people talk about old Irish crafts and things like that, like we're natural heritage and cultural heritage.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so that's great. He's also only 17, but I'm a trained teacher and I'd be going with him. And they said, sounds interesting. Bring him, come, and we'll do an interview together.
Yes.
And they said, yeah, you should be you should be on our heritage experts list.
Yes.
The youngest person ever to be on the list.
Yeah.
And since then, we're doing another 5 schools over the course of this month. But we
that's for a different program though.
That's for the arts
program.
That's true. That's true. But what we visit about 90 schools, more than 10,000 children, teaching them about wildlife. And one of the schools early on, they said, oh, we're so glad that we found you on the website because we have a child in the school with Down syndrome, and we thought it would be really great for Fionn to be here. I didn't like that. I thought, but you know, this is about nature. It's about wildlife. I mean, he's coming because he's an expert. But then again, slow learner, I watched and realized, no, that's actually a really important part of this too, is that for the children who don't have these fixed ideas about disability or Down syndrome or things like that, to see their teacher who, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when we were so little, we looked at the teachers as sort of demigods. You know, they were
role models.
They were the most important people we knew, right? And for the teacher to greet Fionn at the front of the room and say, thank you for coming, take over the class. That makes a pretty profound influence that they carry forward, because you know, most of us didn't have that in our childhoods, looking at people with Down syndrome. If we had any experience of it, it wasn't in such a socially valued role as that. So I get it that you're having an influence on these school communities.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So
it's
that's
absolutely fantastic. It's so good.
But we also talk to social care students at university. And that's the other time that we're often in the classroom, is as guest lecturers. So Fionn has not been to college or university, but you've lectured at more than 30 of them.
Yes.
That's amazing. So good. So good. Do you ever get to talk to social workers, Fionn, or student social workers?
Yes. Well, yeah. In all the different fields, like social care work and occupational therapy, OT, and inclusive sports and recreation, and all.
So most
all
of
the stuff like
of our college work is with social care workers. Last year you gave the keynote address to the the Irish Social Care Ireland, SCI. We gave the keynote address to them. And during the summer, something called Sigma Nursing, which a European conference that happened in Dublin. So we do a lot of conferences.
That's why it's the Disability Nursing and Midwifery Conference.
It was, yes.
It'd be great to hear what your key messages are in them talks that you give. Do you have some certain key messages that you share with them different audiences?
Well, one of them is to simply dream big.
Dream big. I love it. Yeah, that's great.
And there's one about shifting perspectives that we almost always give. What's that one all about? It's about,
which one are we thinking of?
Well, I'm thinking of your employer. We're talking to people who either have a job in social care or will soon have a job in social care.
And flipping the script on that.
How do we encourage them to flip the script?
To think of the person that's in front of them with the disability or the impairment as their boss, instead of the real boss signing their paycheck, the person that's in front of them, that's the real boss.
Yeah. Yep. So the
Absolutely.
person who signs your paycheck is not the one who's providing you with a job.
Yeah.
Although it sounds surprising for a lot of people to think of, you wouldn't have, if you work in this field, you wouldn't have a job if it weren't for the person that you're supporting. And even to push that a little farther, to say there may be times when there's a conflict between what your official employer wants you to do and what the person in front of you that you're morally obligated to work for wants you to do it. And we're hoping that you young people are brave and help change things by saying, these are the people that we need to listen to.
Brilliant.
So through all
That's
this, you are
amazing.
absolutely changing the world, aren't you? You know, the influence, seeing things differently, encouraging people to open up their thinking and have different realizations around what the relationships are in their life and how to relate to people. Are you still dreaming big?
Yeah.
Yes. What does the future hold? What's next?
What's one of your what's a new dream that you have? What has unfolded in recent months that you'd like to do more of?
Well, I suppose that would be politics, because politics in a way, in a certain sense, headhunted me.
You got
Really?
dragged into this.
Yeah,
I don't know
I did.
if it was a dream.
You got
or
dragged
not.
in.
No, it wasn't.
Fionn got headhunted by a group in England
Yeah.
that was setting up the National Down Syndrome Policy Group.
Yeah.
With the goal of creating legislation that was Down syndrome specific, which is another, there's a controversial aspect to that we could talk about. But it turns out in the world of politics, you can only be successful if you're specific about things. If you want to convince the politicians to go along with you.
Yeah.
And you also have to be able to work across aisles. So, you have to set aside the whole idea that, like, well, this is our team, we want to win, and rather to get people to do things together for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And anyway,
The cross-party.
Yeah, the long and short of it is that this group became the secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group on Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And I mean, through amazing hard work and amazing good luck, there was a bill submitted, which later was signed by the Queen.
Yes,
That's
that's
one
right.
of her final acts in
Yeah.
April of this year. So
Right.
England now has the world's most expansive Down syndrome specific legislation.
Yeah.
And Fionn was one of only 5 founding officers with Down syndrome
Yeah.
to help bring it across. So what did you do? Like, what were some of the key experiences that you had over these 12 months? It all happened within a year and a half since we started.
Yes, it did. For World Down Syndrome Day last year, I got to give a speech at the Parliament buildings in Westminster.
And you've been working now that the bill has become a law and the consultation with stakeholders is ongoing. You've run a couple of focus groups for the Department of Health and Social Work, Department of Health and Social Care, is it called, in England, to stakeholder focus groups, talking with people with Down syndrome.
Yes.
Him is the chair of the advisory group, made up of a few dozen people with Down syndrome.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing, isn't it?
Brilliant.
And
so the big dream that you have of being in politics, you're already there, Fionn. You're there. You're at the house. You're at the main building.
So we've been talking now in Ireland. You talked to the Minister of what is she called? Minister of Disability Affairs. about getting something like the Down Syndrome Act here in Ireland.
Yes.
And you've been talking, we
remember.
just came back from Brussels, our first trip there for conference, Persons with Disabilities Conference.
Yes, it's called the European Day of Persons with Disabilities Conference.
And Fionn is talking with a few of the MEPs about an internship in Brussels. So you learn more about international policy and politics.
Yeah.
And on the way back, this is totally coincidental.
Yes.
Who sat behind us in the plane from Brussels to Dublin?
The Thomas Leo Varadkar.
And in a couple of weeks, by earlier arrangement, he will become the
Taoiseach.
And Taoiseach translates as Prime Minister. So we saw him picking up his luggage and got a chance to chat briefly with the future Prime Minister of Ireland, just coincidentally.
Yes, and Thomas means Deputy Prime Minister.
That's what he is at the moment.
And Taoiseach means Prime Minister or Chieftain.
Yeah, Fionn gave expert witness testimony to the
Oireachtas,
which is
the Irish Parliament here in Ireland.
And that was about they were doing personal assistant services, which for us is that's framed in a physical disability support framework. And the question we have again has to do with like, well, this isn't really a Department of Health matter when you're looking at intellectual disability or autism or things like this, that you're really looking for assistance to engage with the community, right? Not so much assistance to brush your teeth or, you know, things of a sort of physical health perspective, but much more of a communal health, if you will, like what can we contribute? Because I think when people like Fionn are embedded in community and contributing, it makes a huge difference to the health of the community.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
So I think sorry, before we end, Fionn wants to mention a project that we've been doing in community.
Yes, speaking of community, it's called Food Cloud.
Go on.
Food Cloud.
Tell us more.
Yes, well, Food Cloud is they're called Food Cloud charities. So
no, it's a social enterprise like we are. It's much bigger than us, but it's not a charity at all. No, they work with charities.
They are a social enterprise, but they call themselves Food Cloud charities.
Okay, we'll set that aside for now. We do have our disagreements about things along the way.
That is the argument. Even the social enterprise.
But they're only our brokers. They're the go-between for our project, which doesn't have a name. But we realized that grocery stores often throw away a lot of food.
Yes.
And people are beginning to question, like, what does this best by date really mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been talked about a lot this year, hasn't it?
Yes. So most of the big chains, your Tesco, Aldi, and Lidl, they have policies that they don't sell it after the date that's on it, and until recent years, they just would toss it. And Food Cloud was one of these. A couple of women in Dublin who saw the need and organized between these chains of supermarkets and mostly charities, but also social enterprises, to say, look, if people will come and pick up the food, will you give it to them?
You can use,
Yes, indeed. And so we went through the steps required, a food handling course, and convincing them that we would do good things with it. We said, well, Fionn's living independently. He wants to learn to cook. Maybe if we learn how to learn to cook, then that's something we can teach other people, perhaps.
Yeah, of course.
And so we'll take some food, and what we didn't realize is how much food we were signing on to take. So it was far more than we could ever
Yeah.
that we could ever hope to eat ourselves.
Yeah.
Hope to eat. And
Yeah.
so Fionn took his little red wagon, which we didn't even mention. Fionn's always loved,
yeah.
since a child, you know, little
Yeah.
boys, they love to see trucks and wheels and things. Well, Fionn's kept that
Yeah.
great love of things that move.
Yeah.
And your little red wagon, you
Yeah.
still use
Yeah.
for every opportunity you can to bring things around.
Yes.
So we loaded it up with food, and Fionn's apartment is here in a complex of about 100 other
Yeah.
apartments. And he just started going door to door and knocking on the door and introducing himself and saying, would you like some food? And through
Oh, great way
that,
to get to know people.
a really great way. And
Yeah.
people who then we see every week, and Fionn has his chats with everybody and they
Yeah.
invite you in for a cup of tea, and you
That's right.
you
Yeah.
learn their stories and you share yours.
Yeah.
And building a lot of social capital, because they think of Fionn as that guy who gives us food, you know. So and we've had more and more people come in. We've got about 24 active families.
Yeah.
And some amazing stories about people who are really in need, you know, that we're actually making a difference in their lives.
Yeah.
By providing them with you know, a grocery bag or two a week, sort of thing. It takes a lot of our time, but it's great fun, and it feels like a really important thing on so many levels, because
Yeah.
you're concerned about the environment,
Yes.
and we want to see that waste reduced.
Yeah.
And also you're interested in building community,
Yeah.
and this has been a wonderful way to
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It sounds fantastic. In fact, that's just inspired me. We have locally, and I know Sarah, you know of this one as well. There's an app. I don't know if you have access to it in Ireland. It's called Too Good to Go. And it's basically local stores that have got things that they can't really sell. It's gone past them being able to sell it, but it's way too good for it to go in the bin. So they put the food into a bag, and you have absolutely no idea what you're going to receive. But if you want one of the Too Good to Go bags, you pay £3, you get a bag full of things. And the reason I've not done it before is because I wouldn't necessarily know what to do with whatever I get in the bag. And it might not be something I'd actually want.
Yeah.
But you've just inspired me to realise that, well, it might not be about me actually having that food. It might be about me grabbing that food, doing something with it to then share with neighbours and people in the local area. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's such a great idea. Yeah.
It's worked really well. And
Yeah.
I mean, one of the advantages of this compared to that is that people get to choose what they want, what they will actually use, you know, rather than a sort of a mystery bag, which can be great fun too, you know, but
yeah,
we
what
end
is
up-
that?
we end up sharing things with people that they choose to themselves, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, it has its ups and downs, to be honest, because when you don't, there's no money that exchanges hands, right? In on our end of things. And I sometimes question that, like when you give away services, because this is a community service that we are giving. As I say, we spend many hours out of each week dealing with this. You know, you might say, well, if it's free, people don't value it. And that's not the same as saying we should sell this food. It's not that at all. But, you know, we were thinking about perhaps kind of a subscription service where people commit to giving some of their time or something like that to what we do. And there are a lot of people who are helping out.
Yeah.
But it's so tricky, isn't it? Because we want you want a world where people give according to their ability, and that's not going to be the same for each person. And you want you want a world where people receive according to their needs. And that's not true in every case. And this system that we have is really good on that regard, because people take what they think they can use, and there's no limits placed on that. If someone wants to take everything we have, the first person we go to, that's fine. We just say to everybody else, we'll see you in a few days. We don't have any food going today. But the piece about like figuring out how people contribute according to their ability to contribute is one we haven't worked out. But that's a big part of community also.
It is,
Some of the-
yeah.
That's part of the learning, isn't it? And getting to know each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Having that time and
It has to be
working
both
each
ways.
other out.
Mm.
And one of the things,
Reciprocal.
one of the reasons why people with disability need employment is, first of all, of course, it should be real employment. They can volunteer some, but they have to get paid as well. So that's one of the important things about working in society, is that you get recognized for your work. But the second part is that you're doing something meaningful, you're contributing. That feels in some ways more important than getting a paycheck.
Mm. Then in keeping with how you, your mission, do you both feel like you're doing what you love?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. It sometimes of course it's a matter of like we have to be patient. Like we do have big goals. And there's lots of places we'd like to be.
Yeah.
We'd like to visit. We've been to a lot more. What did you read out from our statistics? 7 countries or something? We've been to about
7.
we've been to about 26 actually.
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, those stats are about 3 years old, but also I think we were referring specifically to be visiting classrooms in
Yes,
that
that's
case.
right.
But so there's lots of places we'd love to go, and we have a book that we're working on. It's no publisher yet, so that's a thing we have ambition for.
Yeah.
Once
And tell me, tell us more about the patrons, because I noticed on the website you are about to launch, I believe, a way of people becoming patrons. Is that right?
we have launched that, haven't we?
Oh, has it been launched?
Yeah. So so say something about Patreon. So it's to be a patron through this system.
Yeah.
The system is called Patreon.
Yes.
Right, that's
Yeah.
the website.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you do? Basically, just a subscription.
Yeah,
Just
it's
gonna-
a subscription. It's a subscription service.
Well, it's a service, but what do people get out of it? Our goodwill.
Yeah, our goodwill.
Our
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's basically when people believe in what we're doing and have a few quid available that they think, actually, I'd like to, support you guys, then they can sign up at various tiers, and we don't care about that. Like people, it's just nice to it's validating when somebody says, actually, what you're doing is that useful to the world that I'm willing to contribute to what you do.
Yes.
And there's been a number of people who have done that, so that's very exciting.
That's great.
Fionn does a lot of busking, so Fionn plays his fiddle, as we mentioned. And that also is a way, I mean, on a kind of micro scale, that's the same thing, where people you don't have to pay for the music. Like, some people may not even want the music when they're shopping, but I think most people enjoy that. And Galway's a great city for street music. But for people to give Fionn coins as they're walking by, it's a way of validation, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and if people have listened to this vlog, and they're really behind your pursuance of your mission and want to kind of help you on the journey to where you want to be, how would they become a patron? What would they need to do to achieve that?
There's just one word to remember.
Okay.
Our name.
Our name, of course, Fionnathan.
Fionnathan.
Yeah, Fionnathan, which is spelled when you put our two names together. Fionnathan.
Yeah.
We're the only ones on the World Wide Web. So, so whether
unique
you go
URL.
yes. So Fionnathan.com is our website, and you can reach us through that. But all the socials, not TikTok yet, but Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We're always Fionnathan, and also at Patreon and PayPal and all those. So if anybody feels inspired to to support us.
Fantastic.
Do it.
Well, what we'll do, guys, when we upload this to the Imagineer YouTube channel, we'll put notes underneath the video, and what we'll do is we'll include links to your website and your Patreon page. So if people would like to support you financially, there's a direct link for them to do that as well. Is there anything else online that you'd love people to have a look at? Maybe a video that you've done, or I know that you guys have been involved with Citizen Network TV, for example. You've done quite a lot on there, haven't you? Is there anything else you think that our audience would really love to watch or be interested in that you've been doing lately?
Oh, what about the food disruptors program video that we did?
Oh yeah.
For crowd?
So we've done about this food project. We've done a couple of informational videos. If people want to set up something like that in their own community, we were the guest blog writers for Food Cloud, that organization, a couple of months back. The big one is the Happiness Project, where Fionn has interviewed quite a few, more than 600 people. And all those interviews are recorded and put up on our YouTube channel, which I think is Fionnathan Presents the Happiness Project.
Yes.
But if you just look for Fionnathan, you're going to find us there.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
You mentioned Citizen Network, and we are the international ambassadors for it, and that's of course how we met Imagineer.
It is, yeah.
We love to visit, just to do learning exchanges. We can give workshops and performances and lectures and things like that, but we love to learn when we travel. So if there's communities that are hearing this who would consider having us come, we'd love to do that. We love going everywhere.
Fantastic
we
offer.
do,
Brilliant. That's so amazing, guys. Well, we always wrap up our vlog interviews by asking some questions. So we've already got you prepared for this, so hopefully you'll be ready. So first of all, in our previous episode, which was episode 5, we interviewed Lucy and Kate, and we asked Lucy and Kate to come up with a question for you guys to answer, and they didn't know who you were going to be, so you could be anybody, but the question that they came up with was, can you tell us about a magic moment? And then they explained that what they mean by magic moment is when you have that moment where you go, yes, it's going to work, this is amazing. So we asked you guys to think about what your magic moment might have been, and if you could share that with our audience, that would be great.
Yes. Playing my fiddle for the local villagers of the Amazon.
Yes.
Wow.
So we did go to the Amazon because of Fionn's love of wild things and wild places. And I should just say that probably like most of you, I mean, sounds great, but I'm never going to the Amazon in my life, was what I thought. But then when you said you were interested in going, I realized, well, why not? Like, let's just, we can probably do this, and we can probably, like we usually travel, just do it on the cheap. Like, we don't look for luxury when we're traveling. And sure enough, we found some amazing people who helped us get to the deep, uncut part. Only 1/3 of the Amazon has not now been cut and regrown, most of it. But anyway, this is pristine rainforest, a 30-hour boat ride. And when we got to the village where we were staying, they had a grass-roofed community center. About 100 people lived there. And when you played your violin, which you brought all the way up the river, the we were told the village children
Yeah.
have never heard a violin before.
Right.
Wow,
How did they
that's
That-
respond?
incredible.
That was maybe the moment when I realized, oh, what we're doing is really, it is changing the world. I mean, in tiny ways, but
Yeah.
significant ways too, for their first experience to be you playing
Yes.
the fiddle
Yeah.
violin makes it
Yeah.
even more special, I think.
And that
Mm.
that experience and what you brought to that village and for them young children will be talked about for such a long time. You can imagine that they will think about it and talk about it and reflect on it, and it'll be passed on down generations, won't it? That
Yeah.
this handsome young man turned up in the Amazon and played his fiddle to a whole group of people, and they'd never heard that instrument before. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, and of course the memories that they gave us and the stories that we can tell from
Yeah.
our experiences there was
Oh,
such,
yeah.
we got a really good deal.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, we
amazing.
did.
A good exchange.
Yeah, it
That's
was,
so
it was a wonderful exchange.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So the second part to this bit of the conversation is, can you guys come up with a question for us to ask our next guests in episode 7? So have you got a question for us to share?
Yes, that was an easy one
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, that's right.
But when I mentioned the happiness project, it's really around one question.
Yeah.
And it's endlessly fascinating to us, the kind of
Yes.
answers that people give,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So why don't we ask the next guests on the vlog to answer the question that you've asked over 600 people to answer already?
Yes. That question is, what do you love about your life?
Wow. What do you love about your life? That is a really interesting question. I bet you've heard some amazing answers, haven't you, from people? Yeah. That's
Such
so cool.
a different range of answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so much commonality too.
Yeah.
You know, when people talk about what they love, they often, we hear never the same answer twice, but a lot of very similar sort of categories of responses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So we've given a number of talks and just written a peer-reviewed journal article about this as a research project, because it's a social
Yeah.
media project, but it's also a way for Fionn to learn about what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
By asking other people what they love about theirs.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
So we'll look forward, we'll listen in the future, and we'll be really interested in what.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And will you be, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about a book that you're working on at the moment. So will you be talking about them conversations that you've had in that book?
Yes,
Yes.
that might be a book all of its own, because
Mhm.
and quite a few, about of the 600, roughly 1/4 of them are people that are famous. And,
Yeah.
and I measure that by, they have a Wikipedia page about them, that level of fame in many different categories of walks of life.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think
Yes.
people will be interested in those answers, particularly answers given by people that they know or sort of know, that they're aware of. So we might do a book that's specifically about that, maybe illustrated by you, because Fionn's a visual artist as well. But the bigger book we have is just, you don't have to buy the book, you've just heard it.
We had the audio version.
Yes, it's just about our lives. It'd be a bit more, more detail, I suppose. But we, one day in a Guardian article, we saw, interviewed a man who in Copenhagen runs the Happiness Institute, and also the Happiness Museum. And he's a bestseller himself, having written a book called The Little Book of Hygge, which is a Danish
we
word
love
for
that
comfort.
book.
Oh,
That's one of our favorites.
well, Mike Viking, the author of that book, we were just bold, as we often are. That's one of the things when Fionn said our message is aim high. We just we just rang him up, or rather sent him an email, or sent his assistant an email and explained why you are a happiness expert as well. And he said, I want to meet you, let's Zoom. And then he said, okay, so we should work together. When you get to Copenhagen, I'll be giving you a private tour of the museum, and we'll look for some projects we can do together. Oh, and like, would you like to publish a book? I can put you in touch with my my editor.
Yeah, with Penguin Life, actually.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to say that. We don't have anything set yet, but anyway, so that was another door that opened, and it may well be that Penguin Life, we might be publishing a book.
Yeah,
in the near future.
Yes,
that's so cool. You guys are so well connected.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that's what happens when you reach out, isn't it? Well, you know that so many people reach out back to you, and that's been a lovely learning for us both. And thank you for reaching out and inviting us to be a part of this wonderful series you're doing.
Yes.
Wow.
Looking forward to this so much. And the next time you are on English soil or UK soil, or when we're on Irish soil, or if we just happen to be on the same soil at the same time, somewhere in the world, we're really looking forward to meeting you in person as well. I'll bring, now that I know you play guitar and fiddle, I might bring along my little bass ukulele as well. Maybe we could do
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a song, right? Brilliant.
What can you play,
Thank you so much, guys. It's been so good to meet you both.
Yes. What do you play, Sarah?
I play piano and a little bit of guitar, but not very well.
Great. Well, we'll have a jam next time.
Yeah,
that sounds
busking together. We could rock up. We could just rock up and do some busking wherever we end up.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yes.
Great. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Great to spend time with you both.
So if you've enjoyed watching today's episode and you'd like to know more about what Fionnathan get up to in their spare time, because they're such busy guys, they're doing so many amazing things, we'll put all the information in the notes below this recording. And of course, if you'd like to get in touch with us at Imagineer to talk about what we do, please visit our website or send us an email. All of the information will be in the show notes below this episode. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.